Married, divorced, and single here, it's one family that mingles here.
Conservative and liberal here, we've all got to give a little here.
Big and small here, there's room for us all here. Doubt and belief here, we all can receive here.
LGBTQ and straight here, there is no hate here.
Woman and man here, everyone can here. Whatever your race here, for all of us grace here.
In imitation of the ridiculous love Almighty God has for each of us and all of us, let us live and love without labels.
It's good to be back in the land of the living. I spent most of last week in bed, and I'm so grateful. Oh, sorry, forgot. I'm Jen. I get so excited. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm so glad to be back in the land of the living. Yes. Thank you. I spent last week in bed, and I'm so grateful that John is who John is and that he already had his sermon written. And by the way, that will never be me. And so he could pinch hit for me. And I'm not sure what I was thinking, but I had this thought in my delirium that I could just write a sermon while I had the flu. Maybe it's a healthy dose of denial, but my chattering teeth and my sweaty body for the majority of 3 days should have clued me in that no, I cannot write a sermon with the flu. About 4 days in, it was last Wednesday, and I was feeling a little better. My fever had broken in the night, and it wasn't quite back yet. And at around 11 a.m., I laid in my bed crying. I was trying to craft words for this thing, and I finally just slammed my computer shut. And I had to come to terms with the fact that I could not, in fact, rise above the flu. The flu had to win. Why do we have a hard time admitting that we're sick? I was alone with my thoughts a lot that week, and I'm really bugged by the fact that I could not let myself rest without judgment or justification. I couldn't let myself be sick. Why is that? What is this belief that we have to be productive at all costs, that I have to earn my keep? Anyways, now that I'm healthy, I'm really glad that I lost the battle. I'm glad that I had to admit defeat. You did not want me here on Saturday night preaching a sermon. Just because I was feeling better does not mean I was feeling well. That is an important distinction. And let me just say, I have an incredible appreciation for those of you who have chronic illness. The physical demands, they must be daunting, but the emotional and the mental demands are lasting. Are we good? Use the hand. Okay. I would love that because this is annoying. All right. We're not weak when we need to rest. We are not weak when we need to sleep. We are not weak when we need to take care of ourselves and our loved ones. And we are not weak when we need to take a break and get a change of scenery. I had to learn this the hard way. And I was fortunate that I could stay home. Many do not get to make this choice. In the Gospel of Matthew, as we continue our conversation on the Sermon on the Mount, we encounter loads of sick people. There's word out there that there's this Jewish rabbi, and he is performing miracles. In our scripture for today, we're going to look at the Beatitudes. John got us started last week on the Sermon on the Mount, and like I said, you did not want me here, so things are a little bit out of order, but it's better than me infecting all of you. Yeah, you're welcome. The Sermon on the Mount is the first and the longest of Jesus' 5 discourses throughout his ministry, and this sermon marks the beginning of his 3-year public ministry. Up to this point, according to the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus has been baptized by John the Baptist, his cousin. He self-selected for a 40-day all-inclusive desert journey where he encountered a buffet of temptation unlike anything we will ever experience. And now we find him with a plethora of sick people, with a couple newbie disciples getting their first lessons in miracles. The sick and the suffering, they keep showing up. They are coming from far and wide. It's like a B-rated zombie movie. I can say this because that's what I looked like last week, barely able to shuffle from my body from bed to couch. And Jesus tends to them. He sees them, he heals them, and he teaches them. He's not just tending to their physical needs, but he's giving them life. He is offering them salvation. The stage is set in Matthew chapter 4, verse 23. Jesus went throughout Galilee, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the good news of the kingdom and curing every disease and every sickness among the people. So his fame spread throughout all Syria, and they brought to him all the sick, those who were afflicted with various diseases and pains, demoniacs, epileptics, and paralytics, and he cured them. And great crowds followed him from Galilee, the Decapolis, Jerusalem, Judea, and from beyond the Jordan. These folks were traveling from upwards of 60 miles or more. And they are not just Jews. This is a whole mishmash of folks who have nothing left to lose. These people are at the bottom of society's barrel. They have no chance to be respected members of society. They are cast outs. They are losers. They are sick. They are contagious. And nobody wants to be around them because they are believed to be unclean. I especially love this passage for the language. As a person prone toward hyperbole, we have a feast of absolutes. Jesus cures every disease, every sickness. His fame spread throughout all of Syria. They brought to him all of the sick. Eric and I, we are terrible arguers. We spend half of our time in silence in separate rooms trying to figure out that zinger, that one thing that will sway the argument in our favor. But one rookie mistake I made early in our marriage that prevented me from winning was my use of absolutes. You always do this. You never do that. You never treat me well. You always spend more money than me. You know, these arguments that don't go anywhere. But Jesus is here performing miracles left and right. And I have no doubt in my mind that this is not hyperbole. Every disease, every sickness, all of Syria, all of the sick are being healed. This is the moment Jesus' authority is sealed. Jesus is the Son of God, and it is time for the world to know this. He has a big job to do: healing, teaching, saving, relieving. And he has to usher in this new kingdom, not a kingdom that's far off on the other side of eternity, but on this side of eternity, here and now. Rachel Held Evans said in her book, Inspired, "The kingdom of heaven is not some far-off future dream. It is here among us, made real by life, health, and resurrection of Jesus. Jesus is what it looks like when God is king, when God's will is done on earth as it is in heaven." Jesus has to set up a new empire. And here we have God in the flesh, meeting these no good nobodies right in the middle of their desperation, in the middle of their bleeding, in the middle of their pain, in the middle of their addiction, in the middle of their mental illness, in the middle of their very, very worst. This new empire was in direct contrast to the Roman Empire, the ruling body of the land at the time. As it was in the Roman Empire, a handful of powerful men and their families, we could call them the 1%, they ruled over a non-existent middle class. The leftovers, they were hard-working, hourly workers who could not afford to be sick. Their livelihood, their entire economy depended upon their bodies, depended upon their productivity, depended upon their health. But when you have a handful of ruling families, it is their goal to keep the masses down. Otherwise, the people would rise up. So how do you do that? You don't have basic sanitation. You don't have clean water. You don't have healthy food. You don't provide adequate health care. You don't provide a living wage or affordable housing. And there's stigma. So not only are you sick, but you're also disconnected from your community. This is how you keep the people down. Life was hard for these people. But Jesus saw them. Jesus knew them. Jesus was one of them. He knew that their lives depended upon their productivity, and without the ability to work, they had nothing. They were outcasts. And yet to Jesus, they were everything. He restored them, not just physically, but he restored them spiritually, emotionally. He gave them back their dignity. And in this new empire, in this new kingdom, it was everything the Roman Empire wasn't. The passage continues, Matthew chapter 5:1. When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him. I want you to imagine this scene with me. It's a beautiful day, warm with a slight breeze coming off of the water. The morning, it was chilly, but I slept through the night all right, considering the pain that my body was experiencing. I noticed a few folks were milling about. It seemed like many did not sleep as well as I did. They're still waiting for the healer. There are so many people here, more than I have ever seen in my entire life in one place. They have come from so far, and everyone is here for the exact same reason. Jesus. He's their last hope. And if I'm really honest with myself, he's my last hope too. I'm skeptical though. How could one person heal so many people? It's impossible. I catch myself making excuses, minimizing my own suffering. I'm really not that sick. My pain really isn't that bad. I can really get around fine. I can keep a job for the most part. The only people who really know the truth about my pain is my family, and they have to figure it out. Something, though, inside of me tells me to stay. There is something different about this man, this teacher, Jesus. He is so compelling. I wouldn't say he's exactly handsome or beautiful, but he's alive. He's real. He's fully himself, but there's something else that I can't quite put my finger on. I'm enthralled. I know that I don't really deserve to be healed, and I'm certainly not as bad off as these others, but I still want to watch him in action. A line starts to form. I'm really not sure how all of this works. I wander over with my coffee cup and a loaf of bread brought to me by a kind older woman who'd said something to me in another language. I just said thank you really loud, hoping she would understand. A few hours pass, but people don't really seem to be antsy. In fact, they're quite patient considering their suffering. Maybe for them it's just one more day out of a lifetime of pain. As the sun starts to dip in the sky, the cool breeze, it picks up again. I've been in line all day, but I wouldn't know it. But again, I am compelled. And then there he is, right in front of me, this Jesus, looking at me in a way that will be forever seared in my mind until I die. It was mesmerizing, a perfect combination of tenderness and playfulness. It's like he knows me. I could tell he knew everything, all the things I had done, all the choices I had made, and yet it wasn't a problem. There was only kindness. He introduced himself like I didn't know who he was or something, and he asked me not just about my throbbing, debilitating pain, but he wanted to know me. He wanted to know all of me, and I couldn't help myself. I told him everything. Like I said, I was compelled. He asked why I came, and I started to weep. I need to be well. I am so tired of this pain, but I know it's not as bad as some of the others. And right then and there, he touched me, right here where it hurts, and he massaged gently. And as he did this, he never stopped gazing into my eyes, like he wasn't just healing my pain, but he was healing all of me. the rejection, the loss, the fatigue from all of my sleepless nights, my feelings of worthlessness because I haven't been able to work and to care for my family. And before I knew it, I was pain-free. My mobility, it was restored, and he smiled. To be seen again, it was everything, and he chuckled when he finally realized that I was free. I was saved. His eyes were two perfect slits of joy. He was rejoicing with me, and he pulled me in tight for a hug, laughing, thrilled for me. Every single person was treated with the same reverence and the same joy. It was like a party. He left after a bit to get some sleep, and we all hunkered down for another chilly night. The next morning, it seemed that the crowds had grown, which is hard to believe that even more people could get word. And when he awoke, the crowd, it formed again around him. I noticed that he healed a couple more people before the crowd then started to move. He and his disciples climbed the mountain nearby, and a few followed, but most were still quite weak. About halfway up, he stopped under some shady trees, and he sat on a stump. I followed a little bit, and I leaned up against a rock to listen. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven, for in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. I've heard these Beatitudes my entire life, probably since I was about 3 years old. And I'm at the point with these verses that I get to them and I just gloss right over the top of them. It's like John 3:16. I know what it says. Why do I even need to read it? My frustration with the Beatitudes I identified sometime in my mid-20s. I had my first baby, and Eric and I were still of the belief that a baby was not going to change our lives, so we participated in a small group. Once we learned that the baby didn't care if we were worshiping Jesus or reading the Bible, all he wanted was a normal bedtime so he could sleep too, we stopped going to our small group. Funny how all good things get thrown out the window when the baby won't sleep. I remember one night in particular, and we were at a meeting, and Brooks was not our easiest baby, so I was sufficiently exhausted, and we were studying the Beatitudes, and I started crying, and I said out loud, how can I possibly live up to these standards? I just wish I could be these things. I wish I could suffer more. Little did I know that I was suffering plenty, and I had suffered plenty. What I didn't know at the time, and what I've come to know now, is these Beatitudes, they are not prescriptions. They are not a recreation of the 10 Commandments of the law. The Beatitudes, they are declarations. They are proclamations of a new kingdom. This kingdom of heaven, it is for all of us. But the Beatitudes are not really things that we really want to be, but they're things that we already are. And all of these undesirables gathered around Jesus, desperate, exhausted, overwhelmed, dishonest, hiding, confused, scared, hungry, unseen, unloved, persecuted. They did not fix themselves. Jesus fixed them. We don't have to fix ourselves. All we have to do is get honest. And just like I had to do last Wednesday when I slammed my computer shut and I wept after looking in the mirror because I looked terrible, I realized I was powerless. I could not rise above my illness. I could not conjure up the strength to overcome, and I felt like a nobody. And this is the kingdom of heaven. Jesus is for the nobodies. The word blessed in Greek is makarios, which basically means, hey, guess what? You are so fortunate to be in this position. Hey, you, all of you who have nothing in the present worldly empire, you who have no standing, no reputation, this kingdom is for you. Oh, you are so fortunate. And those of you who weep, those of you who suffer, those of you who grieve, those of you who don't try to hide it because you can't, you will be comforted. Oh, you are so fortunate. Oh, and you precious gentle ones, I see you. I see that you have no land to call your own. You have no place to lay your head. Guess what? In my kingdom, you will inherit the earth. You are so fortunate. And to all of you suffering right now, all of you who live with your eyes wide open, who see injustice left and right, who ache for righteousness, you will have your fill, I promise. Remember what Martin Luther King Jr. said. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Yeah, I feel you. Carry on, dear ones. You will have more than you could ever know. You are so fortunate. Oh, and my merciful ones, I see you. Your generous and your powerless souls, your forgiveness, it is so beautiful. You too will receive this same forgiveness. Oh, you are so fortunate. Excuse me, you don't need to see this. All right, where was I? I know, just the leftovers. Where was I? Oh, and my merciful ones. Oh, I already went there. Oh, this one, I like this one. Oh, to those of you who see with your heart, those of you who love so well and so purely, who people get annoyed with because you feel too much, I know you love so well. You, my children, you will see me. I will make myself known to you. Oh, you are so fortunate. And to my nonviolent ones, I get you. I know how hard it is to resist revenge. I know how hard it is to turn the other cheek, to aim for peace wherever possible. Thank you for knowing that the dignity of life spans from womb to tomb. You, my child, you are so fortunate. And to all of you, my friends, when your love for me and your work for me are misunderstood by others, when others are threatened by your love and they say and they do horrible things to you and your loved ones, you are with me. My kingdom is not the same. Everything gets turned upside down, and you will be with me forever. You are not alone. You keep company with me and with all the prophets who have gone before you. Oh, you are so fortunate. These Beatitudes, they are not prescriptions. These Beatitudes are proclamations. This now is the kingdom of heaven. This is the new economy. This is the kingdom of God, and we are so fortunate. I love that Jesus climbed a mountain. As a longtime Coloradan, I can relate. When I have something that I'm really working through, I try to get to the mountains, and if I can't, I just try to look at them. Either way, they bring me closer to God and to myself. And it's no coincidence that Moses, too, went to the mountain to receive the law from God herself. But it's not so much what happened on the mountain, both with Moses and Jesus, but what happened at the base of the mountain. The Israelites, they gathered together at the base while Moses was communing with God. They were together eating and singing and sharing stories. They were crafting and remembering. Gathered together, they remembered how far they had come and how far God had brought them with pillar of fire, with manna, and with quail. And now the citizens of a new kingdom are gathered, ushered in by the life and the death and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. collected together at the base of a different mountain to witness a new empire, a new way of living, a new way of loving, the kingdom of heaven. And friends, this is us, gathered here together as followers of Christ. This marks our beginning. From here with abundance showing up no matter how broken and bedraggled we are, this is ours. This is for us. There is no cleaning up. We are loved and we get to love one another. The kingdom of heaven is our new beginning. The kingdom of heaven is both our jumping off point and the water in which we swim. Imagine not having to hide anymore. There is no reason. You are so fortunate. You're already known. You are already seen. You are already loved. The kingdom is yours and this kingdom is mine. There's nothing more or less any of us can do to be more accepted, honored, and cherished. This is the kingdom of heaven. As a nobody, as a zero, as a no good whatever, all of us now get to claim that we are somebodies, priceless and fully and wonderfully made, enveloped in the goodness of a new kingdom. So let's sit together. Let's remember the goodness of our rabbi. We are so fortunate as we show up, bedraggled, bruised, broken, sometimes bloody, but we are so fortunate.